The phone rang, slicing through the dead silence of the night. Detective Marcus Hayes, sitting at his desk, was already exhausted from the countless unsolved cases piling up. His fingers hovered over the papers, but his mind wasn't on the paperwork. A long sigh escaped him as he leaned back in his chair, staring at the dull glow of his desk lamp. His fingers drummed against the wood rhythmically as the phone rang louder. He had to answer it, though he dreaded the interruption. "Hello?" His voice was hoarse from lack of rest. On the other end, a cold, deep voice responded, sending chills down Marcus's spine. "Detective Hayes, you don't know me, but I know everything about you." Marcus froze, his heart pounding. He instinctively glanced at the locked drawer in his desk, where the most sensitive files were kept, files on the very case he could never forget. "Who are you?" he demanded, a sudden surge of adrenaline making his hand shake. The voice chuckled darkly. "That's not important. What matters is that you're being played." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Every instinct screamed for him to hang up, but something, an unseen force, held him in place. "Meet me tomorrow at the old warehouse by the docks. Midnight. Come alone." The line went dead before Marcus could respond. His mind raced. A trap? Or the lead he had been waiting for? Marcus stood motionless, staring at the phone, the silence now suffocating. His heart hammered in his chest. The voice had known about the case, about the ones he couldn't forget, the ones that had consumed his life for years. He knew the docks area well, had been there countless times, but tonight it felt different. This wasn't just another tip. The time on the clock ticked loudly, mocking him. His thoughts swirled, and he wrestled with himself. Was this a trap? Or was this the break he had been waiting for? He couldn't ignore it, no matter how dangerous it seemed. Something about the voice, the calm certainty, unsettled him. He could feel his resolve strengthening as he grabbed his coat, the decision made in an instant. He'd go. Want to. Alone, just like the voice had demanded. There would be no backup, no partners. Only him. He checked his gun, holstering it with care. The night felt colder than it ever had before. As he left his office, the distant wail of a siren echoed, as if to remind him that the city never slept, and neither would he. The old warehouse loomed ahead, its silhouette barely visible in the foggy night. The air smelled of salt and decay, and the only sound was the distant crash of waves against the shore. Marcus stood in front of the building, his coat flapping slightly in the cold breeze. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He was alone, no backup, no reinforcements. Just him, and whatever awaited inside. The doors of the warehouse were slightly ajar, an invitation to step into the unknown. He approached cautiously, his hand resting on the gun at his side. Every instinct screamed that something was off, but he had no choice but to move forward. As he pushed the door open, it creaked loudly, breaking the silence. The dark interior of the warehouse stretched before him, filled with broken crates and rusted machinery. He stepped inside, his flashlight casting sharp shadows across the empty room. His mind raced. Who was behind this, and what did they want from him? Inside the warehouse, the air was heavy with dust, the smell of rust and mold mixing in the cold night. Marcus's flashlight beam danced across the broken machinery, casting eerie shadows against the walls. As he moved deeper into the warehouse, a creaking sound echoed from behind him. He spun around, gun drawn, but saw nothing. Then a figure stepped from the shadows, its features hidden beneath the brim of a dark hat. The voice Marcus had heard on the phone belonged to this man, though he couldn't place the face. "You came," the man said in a low, gravelly voice, his tone both calm and unnerving. "I told you to come alone," Marcus replied, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. The man chuckled softly, his posture relaxed. "I know you're not stupid enough to bring anyone else," he said cryptically. The tension thickened, and Marcus took a cautious step forward. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice sharp. The man's face was revealed as he stepped forward, and Marcus froze. He recognized him, though from a long-forgotten case. A case buried deep in his past, one that had never been solved. You're supposed to be dead," Marcus stammered, his voice a mix of disbelief and fear. The man smiled, a cold, knowing smile. "I've been dead before," he said cryptically. "But I've come back, Marcus, for you." The realization hit Marcus like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a simple case. This man was tied to everything Marcus had been chasing, everything he thought he had buried. His past had returned to haunt him. The case he'd never solved, the face he'd never forgotten, now stood before him. "What do you want from me?" Marcus asked, his hand trembling slightly as he held his gun in front of him. The man's smile deepened, and he stepped closer. "Everything, detective." Marcus stood frozen, his gun still raised in his hand. The man, who had once been presumed dead, now stood before him, a cold smile spreading across his face. Marcus could feel his heart pounding in his chest. "You've been dead for years," Marcus muttered, his voice trembling with disbelief. The man's smile only widened. "You've been chasing shadows, detective. I never died. I've been hiding, waiting for the right time." Marcus's mind raced. The revelation felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. Everything he thought he knew about the case had just been turned upside down. The unsolved case, the one he had spent years investigating, was now alive again, and he was in the middle of it. "What do you want from me?" Marcus demanded, trying to steady his breath. The man's laugh echoed off the warehouse walls, cold and hollow. "I want you to understand that everything you've done, every move you've made, has been part of my plan. You've been a pawn in my game." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. He was no longer the hunter. He was the hunted. The world felt like it was spinning out of control, and Marcus knew he had to make a choice: keep chasing the truth, or walk away from the case he had been consumed by. "Who are you really?" Marcus asked, his voice cracking under the weight of his frustration. The man took a step forward, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. "You wouldn't understand, Marcus. All these years you've been a part of something bigger. The cases, the missing pieces, they were all part of the puzzle." Marcus shook his head, trying to make sense of the man's words. "No," Marcus whispered. "I've been chasing the truth. That's all I've ever done. I didn't ask for this." The man's smile faded slightly, but his voice remained steady. "You think you're the only one in this game? You think you're the only one who's lost everything? You're not. Everyone around you is just as much a part of this as you are." Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. He was trapped in a web of lies, deceit, and manipulation. This wasn't just a case anymore. This was his life. The lines between right and wrong were blurring, and the only thing Marcus knew for sure was that there was no turning back now. Marcus backed away slowly, his mind spinning. "So what? You've been controlling everything from behind the scenes. Every move I've made, every case I've solved, has been part of your plan." The man's gaze was unwavering, and his smile returned. "Exactly. Every step you've taken has been calculated. You've been running in circles, while I've been ahead of you the whole time." Marcus could feel the weight of the words sinking in. His life, the cases he had worked so hard on, had all been manipulated. "Why me?" Marcus asked, his voice barely audible. "Why bring me into this?" The man shrugged nonchalantly. "Because you're the best. You're the one who's always come closest to the truth. And now you're the one who will uncover it all, if you're brave enough." The words echoed in Marcus's mind. Uncover it all? What did that even mean? And what was the cost of uncovering the truth? Marcus's gut told him he was getting closer to the answer, but the truth came at a dangerous price. The man turned and gestured to the back of the warehouse, where a series of old files and crates were stacked high. "Come with me. If you want to understand everything, you need to see what I've been working on." Marcus hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly followed. The further they walked into the warehouse, the darker it became. Finally, they reached a small table covered in folders and papers. "This is where it all started," the man said, spreading out the files in front of Marcus. "You've been investigating the wrong people, Marcus. The ones you've trusted, the ones you've been protecting. They're all involved. You just couldn't see it. Marcus glanced down at the files, his pulse quickening. These were the cases he had worked on for years. The same ones that had haunted him. "I've been chasing shadows," Marcus muttered. "I've been fighting the wrong battle." The man nodded. "Exactly. But now, you're going to see the truth, all of it." Marcus flipped through the papers, each one more damning than the last. Names, dates, locations, everything he had investigated, every lead he had followed, was now laid out in front of him. But there was something off about it all. Some of the dates didn't match up. Some of the names were too familiar. "These are the same people I've been investigating," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible. "Why are they here?" The man stepped forward, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Because they were never who you thought they were. They've been pulling the strings all along." Marcus looked up at him, his eyes wide. This isn't just a case. This is something bigger. This is..." The man smiled darkly. "This is the beginning of the end, Marcus. You're about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole goes." Marcus's hands trembled as he set the papers down, the weight of the truth hitting him like a freight train. The real case had just begun, and the consequences were far greater than he could have ever imagined. Marcus's mind raced as he left the warehouse, the weight of the man's words pressing down on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being pushed into something far deeper than he had ever expected. "This isn't just about a case," he whispered to himself, his hand gripping the wheel of his car. "This is bigger than I ever imagined." He could still see the images of the files, the faces he had trusted now twisted in betrayal. His grip tightened on the steering wheel, the tension making it difficult to breathe. As the city lights flickered past, Marcus wondered how many people had been involved in the conspiracy. Was his life the only one at stake, or were there others? The road ahead was uncertain. But Marcus knew one thing. He had to keep going. He couldn't walk away now, not after everything he had uncovered. But where would he go? He had no allies left, and the deeper he dug, the more dangerous the truth became. As he turned onto a dark street, he caught sight of someone standing at the corner, watching him. His pulse quickened. Had someone been following him this entire time? The figure stepped out from the shadows as Marcus slowed his car, coming into full view. It was a woman, her features partially obscured by a hood, but there was something familiar about her. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. "No," he whispered under his breath. "It can't be." The woman approached the car slowly, her movements deliberate and calm. She stopped just outside the driver's side window, her eyes locked on Marcus's. "It's been a long time, Detective," she said, her voice soft but steady. Marcus's mind raced as he tried to place her. The memories hit him like a tidal wave, someone from his past, someone he thought was gone. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, trying to hide the shock in his voice. The woman smiled faintly. "I know you're confused, but you've been looking in the wrong places, Marcus. You're so close to the truth. But you're missing the most important part." She stepped back from the car, her eyes never leaving his. "Follow me," she said, her voice laced with urgency. "There's something you need to see." Marcus hesitated for a moment before opening the car door. The woman was already walking away, her steps echoing in the empty street. As he followed her, every instinct told him this was a bad idea, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was the only lead left. She led him to a small, unmarked building on a side street, its windows boarded up. "What is this place?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with suspicion. The woman didn't answer at first, instead turning to face him as she pushed open the door. The smell of damp wood and decay hit Marcus immediately, and he instinctively reached for his gun, though he didn't draw it. "You should have stopped looking," she said, her voice echoing in the empty space. "But now that you're here, it's too late to turn back." Marcus stepped inside cautiously, his eyes scanning the dark interior. There were no lights, only the soft glow from a single flickering bulb above them. "What are you trying to show me?" he demanded, his hand still resting on the grip of his gun. She paused before answering. Everything you thought you knew was a lie, Marcus. Everything. Inside the building, Marcus followed the woman down a narrow hallway, the wooden floors creaking beneath their feet. The air was thick with dust, and the only sound was the echo of their footsteps. At the end of the hallway, the woman stopped in front of a door and turned to face him. "This is where the real story begins," she said, her voice low. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened the door and gestured for him to follow. As Marcus stepped inside, his eyes adjusted to the low light, and he saw a large table covered in photographs, documents, and maps. "These are the pieces you've been missing," the woman said, pointing to the various items spread across the table. "Everything you've seen, everything you've believed has led you here." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes scanning the photos. Faces, names, all connected in ways he hadn't imagined. "This is bigger than just you and me, Marcus," the woman continued. "This goes all the way to the top." Marcus's eyes darted from one photograph to the next, trying to piece together the connections. "Who are these people?" he asked, his voice rising with frustration. The woman stepped beside him, pointing to one of the photos. "They're the ones who have been controlling everything, the ones you've been chasing without realizing it." Marcus's pulse quickened as he recognized one of the faces, the man from the warehouse. "He's part of this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman nodded. "He's the key to everything, but you're still missing the bigger picture." Marcus's mind raced. How could he have been so blind? The pieces were all there, but they didn't make sense. "You've been set up," the woman said, her voice hardening. "And now they've come for you. They're going to do everything in their power to make sure you never find the truth." Marcus clenched his fists, determination flooding his veins. "Not if I can help it," he muttered under his breath. The truth was out there, and he wasn't going to let anyone stop him from finding it. Marcus stared at the woman, his mind racing. "I don't understand. All these years I've been investigating these cases, and now you're telling me that I've been manipulated from the start?" The woman's face remained calm, almost detached. "You were never meant to solve them, Marcus," she replied softly. "You were always meant to be part of the puzzle, a small piece of the bigger picture." Marcus shook his head, his frustration mounting. "You think I'm just some pawn in a game? No. I've spent my life chasing these truths, risking everything. I'm no one's pawn." The woman's gaze never wavered. "It's not about being a pawn, Marcus. It's about understanding the system. Everything you've done has been monitored. Every lead you followed was carefully placed. You've been in the game longer than you realize." Her words cut deep, and Marcus felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had always prided himself on his instincts, but now it felt like they were being twisted against him. "Then why come to me now?" he asked, voice raw. "Why reveal all of this?" She smiled faintly. "Because you're the one who can finish the job, but you have to choose, Marcus. Will you walk away, or will you step deeper into the truth?" Marcus couldn't take his eyes off the woman, his hands shaking as the weight of her words sank in. "So, all of it, the cases, the betrayals, the deaths, they were all planned out?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, Marcus. From the beginning." A cold silence followed her words, the air thick with the revelation. Marcus took a step back, trying to make sense of everything. "You're telling me that people have died for this game?" The woman's gaze softened, just slightly. "People have always died for the game, detective. The question is whether you'll be the next piece on the board." Marcus's jaw tightened, his fists clenched in anger. "No, I won't be. Not now, not ever." The woman's eyes darkened as she took a step closer. "Then you have a choice to make, Marcus. You can either join us or fight a losing battle. The choice is yours." Marcus's mind raced. Was this his only option? Could he really step into the darkness with her, or would he keep fighting, no matter the cost? He didn't know the answer yet, but one thing was clear. The world he had known was gone, and in its place was a far more dangerous truth. Marcus's mind was spinning as the woman's words echoed in his head. Join you? Fight a losing battle? He repeated under his breath. He walked over to the table where the files were scattered, his hands shaking as he rifled through them. Each photo, each document felt like a personal betrayal. I didn't come this far to throw everything away, Marcus muttered, his voice low and determined. I didn't come this far just to let you control me. The woman stepped forward, her voice unwavering. This isn't about control, Marcus. This is about survival. You can't fight what's already been set in motion. She paused, watching him closely. I've been on your side from the beginning. The truth, the one you've been chasing, do you really think you can uncover it alone? Marcus didn't respond at first, the weight of her words sinking in. Could he really do this on his own? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching from the hallway. He turned to face her, his mind still reeling. What do you want from me? He asked, his voice strained. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. I want you to decide. Now. Marcus felt the walls closing in as the footsteps grew louder. Who's coming? He demanded, his voice sharp. The woman remained unfazed. It's not who you think, Marcus, but it's someone who has answers. Marcus's heart raced, his instincts screaming that he was running out of time. He scanned the room, looking for an escape. I don't need answers, I need the truth, he said through clenched teeth. The woman's eyes softened, but there was no sympathy in her gaze. The truth is more complicated than you realize. It's never been black and white. Before Marcus could respond, the door to the room creaked open, and a man stepped inside, his face shadowed by the dim light. Marcus's eyes widened as recognition hit him. You, he whispered, his voice barely audible. The man who had been missing for years, the one who had played a part in the web of deceit, now stood before him. We need to talk, detective, the man said, his tone calm but authoritative. The time has come. The man who had just entered the room took a slow, deliberate step toward Marcus, his eyes never leaving his face. You've been looking for the truth, Marcus, he said, his voice calm but filled with a quiet intensity. But the truth isn't what you think it is. Marcus didn't know whether to trust him or not, but the man's presence was undeniable. What are you talking about? Marcus asked, his voice tight. The man smiled faintly. You've been chasing a ghost. Everything you thought was real has been fabricated. The truth is far darker than you can imagine. Marcus's head was spinning. He had come so far, only to have everything he believed in question. What do you want from me? Marcus demanded. I want you to join us, Marcus. The game is bigger than you think. You've always been a part of it, whether you knew it or not. The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Was he really part of something so much larger than himself? The world he knew was crumbling before his eyes, and he was left with one burning question. Could he walk away from this? Or was he already too deep to escape? Marcus stood frozen, the man's words echoing in his mind. You've been in this game longer than you think, the man said. Everything you've done, every decision, has led you here. It's all been part of the plan. Marcus shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. No, this isn't what I signed up for. I never wanted this, he muttered, his hand tightening on the gun. The man's smile remained cold. You don't get to choose anymore, Marcus. You've always been part of it, whether you realized it or not. The weight of those words sank in. Marcus's pulse raced. What do you want from me? He asked, his voice hoarse. The man stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. I want you to finish what you started. You're the only one who can bring this all to an end. Marcus glanced at the photographs spread on the table. Names, faces, everything coming full circle. He was being pulled into a storm, and the only way out was to confront it head on. Marcus took a step back, his breath shallow. You want me to finish it? After everything? His voice cracked as he struggled to comprehend the full scope of what was being asked of him. And the man nodded slowly. Yes, you're the key to all of this. Marcus's mind raced, but one thought stood out. He had been part of this from the beginning. The betrayal, the lies, Everything had been carefully orchestrated. "I can't just walk away from this," Marcus muttered, his thoughts swirling. "No," the man replied, his voice firm. "You can't, but you have a choice: play the game or lose everything." Marcus clenched his fists. The choice was no longer his to make, it had always been in his hands. The man's cold gaze never left Marcus as he took a slow, deliberate step toward the table, his eyes scanning the scattered documents. Marcus stepped forward, determination settling in. "You think I'm just going to follow your orders?" he asked, his voice growing stronger. The man didn't flinch. "I think you've always followed orders, Marcus, but you can choose now: stay on the path you've been on or create your own." Marcus's fists clenched at his sides. "I don't know how to escape this," he whispered. The man's eyes softened for a brief moment, but his voice remained calm. "You don't need to escape it, Marcus. You need to control it. Finish what you started, and everything will fall into place." The words hit Marcus hard. Could he control the very thing that had consumed him? Could he be the one to end this? The question echoed in his mind as the man stepped back, waiting for Marcus to make his choice. Marcus's hand hovered over the photographs on the table. Every face, every name, had a story. Stories of lives manipulated, ruined, or destroyed. "I'm not your puppet," Marcus said through gritted teeth. "You never were," the man replied, his voice soft but cutting. "You've always had the power to change things, Marcus. You just never saw it." The realization hit Marcus hard. He had been a part of the plan from the start, but now he was at the crossroads. "What happens if I say no?" Marcus asked, his voice firm. The man paused, his expression unreadable. "Then you'll lose everything. But if you say yes, you'll control the outcome. It's all in your hands now." Marcus stared at the table for a long moment, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. Finally, he nodded, his resolve hardening. He was done being controlled. It was time to take control. Marcus straightened up, his mind made up. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady, unwavering. The man nodded once, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Good, you've chosen wisely." Marcus's pulse raced, but there was no turning back now. "What's next?" he asked, his voice resolute. The man stepped closer, his presence imposing. "Next, we make sure that nothing stands in our way. You've got the power to change everything now. It's time to take the reins." The words felt like a heavy burden on Marcus' shoulders. He was in it now, deeper than ever before. There was no escape. His fate had been sealed, and the game was now his to control. He took a deep breath, his resolve hardening as the man turned and walked toward the door. It was time to finish what he had started. Marcus entered the abandoned building, the air thick with dust and decay. His heart pounded as he recalled the choice he had made, the weight of the decision sinking in. "This is it," he whispered to himself. He had followed the clues, walked the dark path, and now there was no turning back. His breath quickened as he moved deeper into the building, his gun tucked at his side, ready. Each step echoed in the silence, his footsteps a constant reminder of the danger he was about to face. "It's time," Marcus muttered under his breath. He reached for the door at the end of the hall. This was the place where everything would change. His mind was clouded, but one thought burned bright: he had come this far, and now he had to see it through. The door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit interior, and Marcus stepped inside, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. The room was larger than he expected, filled with old equipment, discarded furniture, and stacks of paperwork. As Marcus moved through the space, the silence was suffocating, broken only by his breath. He spotted a table in the center, surrounded by chairs. There, sitting across from each other, were two figures, one familiar, one not. His pulse quickened as he recognized the man from the warehouse. "So, you're here," the man said, his voice smooth, calculating. "I knew you'd come." Marcus's eyes darted to the second figure, a woman, her face partially obscured by shadow. "Who is she?" he demanded. The man smiled, the edges of his lips curling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. Someone who holds the answers you've been searching for. Marcus's mind raced. He had to stay focused, but every instinct told him he was walking straight into a trap. The woman leaned forward. You've been running from the truth, Marcus. What truth? He asked, suspicion in his voice. The man spoke coldly. Who's been controlling everything? Marcus clenched his fists. No more games. Tell me everything. The woman stood. You already know more than you think, but one piece is still missing. His heart raced. I don't have time for your riddles. Give me the truth now. The woman spoke calmly. You've been part of a larger plan, Marcus. Everything you've done was to lead us to the final piece. Marcus's mind raced. I've been your pawn, he spat. She replied, not a pawn, a player. Now you choose, join us or destroy everything. Marcus stepped back, his decision clear. I won't be part of your plan. The man's voice was steady. You already have. The woman stood, locking eyes with him. Destroy everything, and there's no going back. Marcus's voice was quiet but firm. I'd rather burn it all down than live with the lies. As he reached for the door, the man's voice stopped him. It's already too late. The game is over. Marcus hesitated, then stepped into the unknown. Marcus walked into the night, the weight of his decision heavy on him. I've lost everything, he muttered. But I have to make it right. His footsteps echoed in the alley, the city distant. He had come too far to turn back now. Redemption was his only choice. A figure emerged from the shadows. I knew you'd be here, the voice said. It was Sarah. I've been tracking the same people, Marcus. We need to stop them. His heart raced. Sarah was alive. What do we do? He asked. We stop them together. Sarah, how? Marcus whispered. I faked my death, she replied. They're after you now. We need to stop them. Marcus clenched his fists. I won't let them win. Let's end this. Together, they would face the conspiracy head-on. Walking side by side, Sarah showed Marcus a device tracking their enemies. We have one chance, she said. Marcus nodded. We do this together, no more running. They were ready to fight, no more fear, just the final confrontation ahead. They arrived at the compound. It's time, Marcus said. We end this tonight, Sarah replied. Their resolve was unshakable as they entered the building, knowing the final battle had begun. No turning back.